Marlene says good morning as well. Thank you all so much for inviting me here. It's great to be here.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Mike, we can call you Mike, right?
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you
Well,
for
I call my son Mikey, so but
I prefer Mike, not
you
Michael.
prefer Mike. All right, we'll do Mike then.
We'll do Mike.
Good morning,
right.
Mike. There are a couple of welcome changes coming up at the U.S. Embassy in Port of Spain. First of all, we like the fact that there'll be now online payments for tourist visas. Is that so? Let's hear more about that.
Yes, that's one of the things we're very excited about. You can still pay at Scotiabank if you like, but now, and most people do this now, is you can pay using a credit card, you can pay online. That makes the process of applying for a visa a little bit easier. And something else that we're very excited and proud of is, the wait time to get an interview has really gone down. We've done a lot of work these last couple of years. 2 years ago, around this time, it was about 340 days, due to the pandemic. But we've gotten that down to where it's just a couple of weeks now, and sometimes even less. So this is a great time to apply for a visa if you want to travel to the United States. The process shouldn't take you very long. I still think, do it as early as you can. But it'll take you a lot less time than it would before.
Mike, I know that the U.S. officials are not obligated to give an explanation or reason as to why they would have refused a visa. But I'll give you an example of someone who recently applied, a girl who recently applied. And she said she had all her documents and she was asked two questions. One, is she married? She said no. Mind you, she lives common law with someone for the last 5 years. And then she was asked, does she have any children? And she said no. And that was it. She was refused the visa. Explain what should someone do in an instant like that? Are they allowed to give an explanation as to that I am living common law with someone for more than 5 years? The person is a serving member of the TTPS and they're steady and whatnot. Should that explanation be forthcoming?
Well, I can't speak about individual cases. I can only talk, generally about the visa interview. And before I give a more specific answer, I just want to make sure that people know that, by far the majority of our applicants are approved for the visas, about 75%. So 3 out of every 4 do get the visa. But basically what we're looking for in the interview is that you have a situation here in Trinidad or Tobago, ties that will compel you to return after a short visit, and that when you're in the United States temporarily, you'll properly use the visa. On a tourist visa, you can't work, you can't study. So those are the things that we're looking for. But as for the common law marriage, that's very common. And yes, please, do say I am in a common law marriage. We understand that that's a common situation here. And people can be, we have cases where people have been common law married for 20, 25 years. They have 3 or 4 kids. And, that's the same as a real marriage, as a regular marriage. So, yes, that is a fact that you do. If you're asked that question, you certainly do want to give that answer.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that because the person also owns a property here too. I neglected to mention that.
Yeah. I have another question too, because they asked me that this week. So let me throw it out to you. He's a 20-year-old chap. He is employed. He has nothing under his name. And he asked me, can he apply for a U.S. visa? And I said, yes, you can. I said, when are you going to travel? He said he does not know, but he just wants to get a U.S. visa in case his aunt wants him to come up. He doesn't have to go through the process. But then he asked me what he should carry to the embassy that they will need. I said, well, first you have to go online and make an appointment and they'll contact you with a date and time and so on. And I also told him carry whatever documentation you have, such as, the only thing he would have would be a job letter and where he lives. Is there anything he needs? And can someone actually apply for a visa not knowing when they travel?
Yes, you can, but just you have to give an honest answer to the interviewing officer and say, I don't have any immediate plans, but in the future I will be traveling, to visit my aunt or for another reason. And as for documentation, anything that you think that shows that your ties, that you have a good situation here in Trinidad, you're welcome to bring that. But I will say in a lot of cases, the officer won't look at the documentation. It's really based on the interview, the questions and answers. And then sometimes, yes, we will ask for a job letter, and because the interview is the most important part. And I would like to say one thing about documentation is, unfortunately, we have seen an uptick in people with fake documents. We have seen people with false job letters, with fake bank statements. And this can, we've got a very good fraud team at the embassy, and we're getting very good at detecting that. So we really, it's not a good idea to do this. We've been working in partnership with the TTPS, and submitting fake documentation is against the law here in Trinidad. So if you try to do that, you might not only not get the visa and be ineligible for a visa for the rest of your life, but you might get in trouble with the local law enforcement as well. So, we do look at documents occasionally, but the most important part is the interview. And if you are going to bring documents, make sure that, everything on there is the truth. Don't try to pass something off.
Do not underestimate the long reach of Uncle Sam.
Well, it's our partners in the local law enforcement have been very helpful with this, because it's breaking local law to claim that you have to claim that you're a police officer when you're not, or to submit a fake a made up bank statement is against the law here. So they've been the TTPS has been very, very great in working with us on that.
Tell us about the relaunch of the STEP for STEP for American citizens.
Thank you. I thank you for asking that. That's very important. We do have a lot of American citizens here in Trinidad. Most of them are dual nationals. And the STEP program, the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, is the method by which we can be in contact with them. We'll send them out messages with information. If they're, during the hurricane a few months ago, we sent out a lot of messages. And we're moving to a new STEP model, an upgraded, better program. But what it means is that people have to re-register with us. They need to go to step.state.gov. And even if you're registered now, in about 3 or 4 weeks, the registration will no longer be valid. So you've got to go there and register once again. And that way you'll get all the messages that we need to send out. And if we need to get in touch with you for some reason, we'll have your contact information.
So the new process is already active.
It is active, but for a couple more weeks, the old process, the old registration will still be valid. But around October 16th or 17th, I believe, it'll only the new people that have re-registered will be getting our messages. So it's very important for all of our U.S. citizens here to do that. And another reminder for U.S. citizens, you may have heard we have an election coming up in about 6 weeks. Very important election, and so you can vote from Trinidad. You can do what's called an absentee ballot, but you really need to look into it if you haven't started the process yet. You go to fvap.gov, fvap.gov. And then, in the U.S. elections, every state has sort of a different process. So you'll go to that website and you'll put in the state that you live in, where you're resident, and it'll explain the process to you for being able to vote in the election from Trinidad. So I encourage all American citizens, it's your duty to vote. Go, if you haven't started the process, please do. Please start it today.
And just repeat the website one more time.
fvap.gov, fvap.gov.
Michael, can we go back a bit to the online payment for tourist visas? Is it active now, or is it coming up in the near future?
Oh, it's active. It's been active
already.
About 6 months.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say maybe, I don't have the exact numbers, but I'd say about 2/3 of our applicants are now paying online. They're not having to take the trip to the bank. So it makes the process a little bit easier.
Can dual citizens vote in the upcoming election, Mr. Mike?
Yes, yes. Anybody who's an American citizen, doesn't matter whether you have another nationality or not, you're eligible to vote. You just need to get the information and get the process going.
Okay.
What are some of because the process for application for the American visa is now an online filling out of a form. So you go online, am I correct? And
That is correct.
It's quite an extensive form because you could pause it and take a while and come back and take a cup of coffee or whatever and do it because it's
There
pretty
are a
intense.
couple steps. There are a couple
there
steps.
are a number of steps.
No doubt.
Right?
So first you need to go online, and you can start it at the embassy website. Just search U.S. Embassy, Port of Spain, and click on visas. You go online and you fill out an online application. And once you've done that, then you'll register at our appointment website, and then you pay the fee, which you can now do online, and then you'll get an appointment. And a lot of people now, they don't need to come in for the interview. They can do what we call the interview waiver process. When you're on our website, our appointment website, you'll be asked a couple of questions, a series of questions, and depending on how you answer that, you'll either be asked to come in for an interview, or you'll be able to submit your documents via TT Post.
I'm glad you mentioned who is eligible, because I know a couple who were renewing visas and who had documents inside, and they were able to access that non-interview option. Is there an eligibility criteria for that from the embassy's perspective?
Yes, there is. And generally, there's always some exceptions, but generally, if you've had a visa that expired less than 4 years ago, then you don't need to come in for an interview. Like I said, there'll be some exceptions, but in almost every case, you won't be required to come in for an interview. It's just important that you answer the questions properly on the appointment website, because we do get people that come in for interviews that really don't need to be there.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example of that one because it happened to me myself, because I've always had the benefit of a U.S. visa over the years, and I had applied, and I had also applied for that interview waiver, but it didn't allow me, and it asked me to come in. So I went in there, and I was literally asked nothing. I presented my passport. Okay, Mr. Stephen, thank you. And that was it. I got my visa back in DHL, through DHL.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It is a little complicated. There's about 7 or 8 questions that you'll be asked.
Mm-hmm.
They're yes/no questions. And you don't need to answer the same answer. It's not all yes or all no, sometimes people think that. And there's one particular question that's asking you if you have any an annotation on your visa, if there's any writing on your visa. And people unfortunately answer that incorrectly. In most cases, there isn't writing on your visa, but there'll be, if there is, there'll be like a separate message saying, traveling for a certain purpose, going to Miami. But if there's nothing like that on there, then the answer to that question would be no. So some people do get that question wrong.
I've noticed too, Mike, that in some instances, when you enter the United States, they don't even stamp your passport anymore. They just ask you to go before the camera, and they just fold your passport, have a good day, and that's it. What was something like that?
Okay, well, that's immigration. That's a different part of the government.
Okay.
But they do have a lot of electronic things now. They're doing a lot of it electronically now. So, your entry is still being put down, is still being recorded. It's a much easier process.
It's much less people and stuff involved.
Yeah, hopefully someday we'll get away from having paper visas at all. That's a goal of the State Department, but it's we're not there yet.
You mentioned the waiver option for interview and some of the common mistakes. What are some of the other common mistakes people make when filling out that online form for the appointment generally? Because it's a long form, it's intense, and I guess people, if they don't understand the questions being asked, they can make some mistakes. So can you identify some of the common mistakes people make in terms of what they're filling out?
Well, what we see is, this is on the application itself.
Yes.
Is that a lot of people don't fill out the application themselves. They go to a service, and a lot of the services are fine. If They're going to cost, you're going to pay where you can do it yourself. And, you know, if you're not great on the computer, you can, you know, have your daughter or your son or your grandchild help you fill that out. That's what we really encourage. But sometimes some of these services will put in answers that they think are better, but may not be the truth. And that can get you in trouble. You know, they may change your job salary, or they may change, you know, your position, or how long you stayed in the United States. And the applicant is responsible for everything that's on that application. So if you are using a service to fill out your application, be sure that everything that they write down on there is correct and is the truth, because you're responsible for that.
That's important information, and what you just said is very important, because you're right. I think a lot of people embellish some of those applications because they think it will work in your favor.
And no, it won't.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is the best.
Yes.
Like I said, 75% of our applicants are getting visas. Most people are. And if you do not tell us the truth, there's a very good chance we're going to find out. We've been doing this for a long time, and then you really hurt your chances of ever being able to.
Including, have you filled out this form on your own or with the assistance of someone? I think that's one of the checkoff questions.
Yes, if somebody else fills it out, they need to write. The person needs to write in their name. Whoever filled out the form, if it's not the applicant themselves.
Yeah.
You know what's another question, Mike, that I think that dissuades a lot of people, and they think they're not going to get a visa. And I had spoken to a U.S. immigration lawyer about it at one point. Considering somebody would ask me the question, being a lawyer, I wasn't sure. They ask you about offenses, if you've ever been arrested, not convicted. If you've ever been arrested, and sometimes, of course, in a Trinidad and Tobago situation, you can have what's the best way to put it?
Arrests that don't lead to convictions.
Arrests that don't lead to convictions, and arrests that can be somewhat vindictive at times, emanating from the TTPS.
Yeah, we understand that. We do have, we ask that question because then we want to see how the case played out. And if the case was dismissed, if you were found not guilty, then it's not an ineligibility, but we will need to see that. So, if you have been arrested, I really encourage you to bring along court documents that show the.
But if you've been not arrested and not charged, there's no court document involved.
If you were arrested, you should still. If you're, there's still has to be some kind of document showing that they didn't charge you.
Yeah.
There's some documentation, from the police, if not from the court, showing that you were never charged for anything.
I don't think there is, Mike. I don't think there is a document that tells you that you've not been charged. You've not been.
Yeah.
Well, you can ask for your police record.
Yeah. Well, right.
You can ask for a record. Yes. And we'll have
would indicate that there is no. You're right. It would indicate there is no conviction.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the question just means that we want to see, how the case played out and what the final result was. And if you're not convicted, then that doesn't make you ineligible for a visa.
Right.
Well, let's extend that question a little further. You've been arrested, you've been charged, but your conviction is let's say community service or community work. It's not a hard conviction. How do you treat with a matter like that?
Well, that gets into the very specifics of U.S. immigration law. So it's a complicated question, and we'd probably have to do a little research. It depends on what you were convicted of. Some are automatic ineligibilities. Others, which are much, lesser crimes, are not. They don't lead to an automatic ineligibility. So we would need to see what the conviction was, and then try to parallel it to our legal system.
I think how it's phrased is. I think how it's phrased is crimes of moral turpitude.
That's one of them. Yes. If it's a crime of moral turpitude, and there's a long list of those, if it is a crime of moral turpitude, or if it's a bigger crime, in general, we have a distinction between a misdemeanor and a felony in U.S. law. And in general, again, most misdemeanors would not be crimes of moral turpitude, but felonies would.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. We'd have to do some research. We'd have to see the documentation. So there's no one size fits all answer to that.
Right. So let me give an example.
The best thing to do is just don't commit the crime.
Right. So let me give an example then. Prior to, I mean, only recently, Trinidad and Tobago would have decriminalized certain amounts of marijuana, right? So, and a lot of the young people would have been charged in the past with having a joint, one joint of marijuana, which is now not a criminal offense. How would you treat with a matter like that if someone comes before you with that type of charge in the past that is no longer a criminal charge now?
Well, again, it's complicated. I mean, have those cases been removed from the record because of the decriminalization, or are they still considered to be criminal convictions?
Only
That's
49.
part of it. And then also, drug use can also be an ineligibility. So depending on how recent it is, so we may ask the person to go visit a physician. It depends. Every case is a little bit different. These are cases that we spend a lot of time on and make sure that we follow the U.S. immigration law.
Let me ask you a question when it comes to expediting getting a visa. I know someone that was supposed to go to a conference. The company paid a lot of money for him to go to this conference, but 2.5 weeks before, he had a family emergency and could not go. His second in command decided to send his second in command. He had a passport, but he didn't have a visa. And they put in an application to expedite and so on. Of course, the long and short of the story is that he didn't get a visa in time. And then he just had 2.5 weeks to get a visa. How long does it really take to expedite a visa?
Well, I mean, we grant expedited appointments for some basic reasons, family emergencies, marriages, funerals, family members in hospitals, and important business travel as well. But still, the process can take a few days. And we never know, if everything goes quickly, we can do it in a couple of days, but it may take a little bit longer in some other cases. And one thing I did want to make sure that I had a chance to mention is that the registration for the 2026 diversity visa is coming up in a couple of days. It starts on October. Let me make sure I get the right date here. On October 2nd, and it lasts through November 5th. And this is an opportunity for people to apply to get a visa to immigrate, live and work in the United States. The diversity visa program, we grant 55,000 people the right to immigrate every year. So the process, if you're interested, the registration process starts on October 2nd. And you can find out more information about that if you go to travel.state.gov. And travel.state.gov. It's a great website by the State Department. It has tons of information about traveling and living and being in different countries. And you search for a diversity visa.
Two questions based on that
program, and we really encourage people to, if you do want to immigrate, to look into applying.
One, what are the conditions that someone who may be wanting to option the diversity visa needs to consider before applying? Because very often people apply for it and do not realize there's serious conditionalities attached to it. If you are successful, you're required to move within a certain time. And I think stay for a particular length of time because you've applied to immigrate. And two, does registration for that, if you are unsuccessful, affect future applications for non-residential visas?
No, it doesn't. No. I mean, we have so many people register for the diversity visa, and it shows that, that yes, you might want to, one of your dreams might be to one day live and work in the United States, but it shows that you're trying to do it the correct way, through the proper channels. A couple of facts about registering: it's free, and you can do it yourself. Again, there are services that are out there, but it's better to apply yourself and to keep track of the whole program yourself, because there's a lot of scams around our diversity visa. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that will send out emails saying you've won the diversity visa. You just have to send $800 to this address, and that's not how it works. It's free to register. You can only register once. You do have to have either a high school education or a couple of years at work in certain professions. All the information is on the website. But never believe anybody. You will never get an email saying that you've won and send money. What you'll do is you'll get a number, and then next summer when they announce the people that are moving on to the interview phase, you'll go into the website with that number and check the status of your case. So any email that you ever might receive saying that you've won the visa, diversity visa, is a scam.
Mike, what are some of the reasons why the U.S. would revoke a visa?
There's a lot of different reasons. It's improper use of the visa. Somebody stays too long. Somebody commits a crime in the United States. Anything that shows that the visa has not been properly used. A number of times the revocations are what we call prudential revocations, and they mean that what it means is you've got to come back, or if you're outside of the country, you've got to apply again, and then we'll have a chance to look more carefully at your case. It doesn't automatically mean that you've done something horrible. In some cases it does if you have, but in a lot of other cases it's just that we want to take a second look. We want you to come in and apply again.
Would it be automatic then, if you've lost your passport with a visa, a valid visa in it, that you would automatically get the visa again?
Not automatic, but if you properly use the visa, if you haven't done or if your situation here in Trinidad hasn't taken a real bad turn for the worse, it's very, very likely your situation will be the same, and you've traveled well. Then yes, you would qualify again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So of course we've covered the tourist visa appointments that shortened significantly the time to receive.
And please, take advantage of that. Come in and apply now. We're going to do our best to keep those wait times short, but you never know. So this is a great time to apply.
Someone is asking what a student in nursing school needs to apply for in terms of a visa.
To go and study nursing in the United States?
Yeah, I guess study. Yeah.
That would be the student visa. That's a different process. You'd need to apply to a nursing school in the United States and be accepted, and then they would send you a document called an I-20. And once you have that I-20 document, then the process is very similar, except for when you're filling out the application form, you say you're applying for a student visa.
No, the person is saying that she is in school here, but I guess looking to get is it a visitor's visa, Aries born? And while she's typing that, someone else is asking, does a lost expired visa create a problem?
No. If you've lost 3 visas in the last 5 years, yes, that could be a problem. But we understand people lose passports, lose a visa. So if an expired visa, that just means you had a visa before. So that's certainly not a problem. But for the tourist, for the B1, B2, which is the basic tourist business visa, it's the process we've already talked about it, regardless of whether you're going to training for nursing here or any other profession.
Well, she's saying she's a full-time nursing student here, so I'm presuming that she's applying for a visitor's visa, which is a normal visitor's visa process.
Right, it would be the same process that we talked about.
What if you had a visa, but it expired before you had the opportunity to travel due to changing circumstances? Does that affect your eligibility or potential for getting a new visa?
The fact that you didn't travel on your old visa? No, it doesn't. We'll ask you a question. Most of the visas that we give are 10 years, so you do have a lot of time to travel. But, if you have a valid reason for, oh, yes, I applied for the visa and I got it, but then this happened.
So but don't they still do one entry 1 year or something like that?
Well, there are times when we will give a shorter visa. There are times when people are going for a specific purpose, sometimes maybe a sports team or a school group or something like that, where we will issue a shorter visa that could be 1 entry, it could be 2 entries, it could be for 6 months. But that doesn't happen that often. In almost every case, we give the multi-entry 10 years.
I'm glad you mentioned that. What about, because Trinidad and Tobago is a very rich cultural country. So very often there are groups, sporting groups and cultural groups who apply en masse. Is that process the same? And what are the eligibility criteria for those circumstances? Because a lot of groups in Trinidad and Tobago, music groups, arts and culture groups, seek to travel to the US for one exchange programs and or to perform. Are there different circumstances under which someone should apply for those visas?
Yes, there are. And, we are working with a lot of our contacts in the Ministry of Culture and Foreign Affairs. We just reached out to the National Carnival Commission, and we're trying to set up a meeting with them to explain some of the rules about performing in the United States. And there, with very few exceptions, if you're going to be paid to perform, then you need a P visa or an O visa. You need a visa that requires a petition. And if you're a professional performer, if you're normally paid to perform here in Trinidad, then unless you're going on an exchange program sponsored by the Trinidad government, and the performance in the United States is for a non-paying audience, then you do need a performer visa. However, if it's an amateur group and you're not going to be paid in the United States except for maybe expenses, then it is possible to do it on a regular B1, B2 visa. And what I would encourage the groups that want to do that is get this organized on time. The issue we often see is these end up, they ask for expedites.
We want to leave next week, Monday.
2 days, 3 days, and it's not organized that well. They don't, the band members don't know exactly where they're playing or what the audience is like. So, try to get all this arranged as early as you can, and make sure that everybody that interviews is fully informed about the situation, where you're performing, whether you're being paid, whether the audience is paying.
I'm glad you brought up that.
All those things.
This might seem like a really basic question, Mike, but what does the U.S. Embassy consider work in the U.S.? It sounds like a very basic question, but what comes under the category where you have to apply for a visa to work in the U.S.? Are there strict parameters within which it's considered work?
Well, if you are receiving money in the United States, there are a couple of small exceptions, but if you're receiving money in the United States, that's working, and you need a work visa, some kind of work visa or performer visa. Now, business, if you're going to set up a business deal, but your company's in Trinidad and your salary's coming from Trinidad, you're just going there to buy products to ship back to Trinidad, or to have meetings with another company. That's a business visa. That's a B1. So you can do that on the B1, B2, the business tourism. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you're going to earn money that's paid in the United States
from a U.S. source.
From a U.S. source, yes.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are a lot of people that have a visitor's visa that will just go up there and conduct their business and come down. Is there any which way you'd know if they're conducting business and receiving money?
Well, conducting business is different from working. I mean, conducting business is setting something up for your company here, setting up some kind of importation or an agreement with a U.S. company. But the company is here in Trinidad, and any money that you're earning is coming from outside of the United States.
Yeah. Mike, if I'm not mistaken, one of your questions refers to politically exposed people, PEPs. How do you generally treat with someone who's politically exposed?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure that's politically exposed.
Never seen that yet
before. So I'm not sure. That's not in one of our questions.
It's not part of your question in.
No.
Okay.
You're mixing up the banks here, Wendell.
Yeah. and quickly for me, Mike, what is the approximate wait time presently for a visitor's visa?
The wait time right now is about 11 or 12 days.
Okay, less than 2 weeks.
And it goes, and it got down to like 3 days a couple of weeks ago, and it varies. It varies by week, but our goal is to keep it within a few weeks, and hopefully it'll stay that way.
Following the interview, is it that I know some people are immediately told you approve, and some people will be told in some hours? Is there a general wait time for approval if you're not told immediately that you've been granted the visa at the interview counter or online?
Just about everybody gets told at the counter. But if not, then no, it can depend. Sometimes we're waiting on you to send us a document. Sometimes we're waiting on one of our systems to give us an answer. So it can depend. And unfortunately, there are a few cases, where you may have to wait a while before you get a final answer.
All right.
I thought once your passport is kept, you're approved.
Well, if we keep your passport, yeah. But if there is going to be, if we think the process is going to take more than a couple of days, we'll give you back your passport, and then we'll contact you when the final decision is made and ask you to send it in.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never heard of an instant like that.
It doesn't happen very often. I mean, almost everybody is approved right at the window.
Right.
Really? Okay.
And can a company in the US apply for a working visa on your behalf if they want to hire you?
Yes, they can. There are certain, there are certain regulations, but the company has to start that process. They have to get a petition approved by immigration in the United States. And then once the petition is approved, the person here will get notice of that, and they'll apply for one of our work visas and come in and talk to us.
Excellent. Michael, you have been so helpful this morning.
Yeah.
Very much.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that?
A lot of information.
No, we've hit just about everything. Just a reminder to our U.S. citizens, absentee voting is very important, and please re-register in our STEP system. And all the information, you can find it at the U.S. Embassy website, tt.usembassy.gov.
Thank you, Charlene.
I'm going to be a bit mischievous now, Michael. Don't answer this question. Do not answer this question. But maybe you all could do some training for other immigration centers.
That would be interesting. Are you speaking of some of our friendly other countries?
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking
It's
about Canada.
7:49 on a beautiful Friday morning.
It means how efficient your processes are.
Well,
And how-
we talk with them.
and how
We learn
limited-
from them, they learn from us.
And how well you
Good
explained
relationship.
everything this morning, I'm actually very impressed with them. That's why
Yes.
very helpful in terms of the
Yeah.
clarity with which you've provided the information that people are asking on the chat, and they're getting really clear, concise answers. That's very appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And
thank
the
you for
lottery,
having me. I really appreciate
the
it.
lottery system starts on next week, Wednesday, the 2nd of October, and runs till
Second of
November.
October. November 5th. You can
November
register
5th.
for the diversity visa. Between October 2nd and November 5th.
Right.
I'll
Mike,
do it just for
And
you.
the website to vote on is what again?
FVAP.
FVAP.gov. Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so please visit.
Wonderful.
All right. Well,
Go
thank
eat
you
some-
very much.
go eat some doubles now, Mike.
All right. I will do.
How long have you been?
I really appreciate
How long have
it.
you been in Trinidad, Mike?
About a year now. So
What are you?
yeah, starting to get a good feel for the place. Enjoying myself.
Yeah. What do you love about Trinidad?
I like Tobago. I've been there a few times. And one of my favorite places to go is the Bamboo Cathedral. I like to do that walk, a couple times a month. I get there very early on Sunday morning, right when the sun is just about coming up, and it's a beautiful walk. It's a good workout too.
And then
What's your favorite local food?
My favorite, I like chow. I like that spicy mango or spicy pineapple. It's healthy and it's got some bite to it. So that's definitely my favorite.
All right. Mike, thanks, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
All right.
Charlene.
Great weekend.